Hello everybody, welcome to Video Game Journal number 2. This time I'm going to be talking about the game World of Goo. I've always loved puzzle games, and I heard about this game before and I always kind of wanted to try it, but I never got around to it for some reason. But when I saw the game in the list of games that we could choose from in the week 4 activity, I was like, this is my chance, why not go for it? From the get-go, I had so much fun with this game. It's super addictive as well. It's in the same realm as like in Angry Birds and other games like that. I think it works perfectly as a mobile game, but it also has a story behind it, which kind of made me want to keep playing and to keep going farther and farther to kind of figure out this hilarious backstory that they created. Alright, so before I get too far into it, let me tell you what the actual game is about. The game is built around the idea of creating large structures using balls of goo. The main objective of the game is to get a requisite number of goo balls to a pipe designed to represent the exit. In order to do so, the player must use the goo balls to construct bridges, towers, and other structures to overcome gravity and various terrain difficulties such as chasms, hills, spikes, windmills, or cliffs. There are several types of goo balls in the game, each of which has unique properties. The player must exploit combinations of these goo balls in order to complete each level. A nice added touch to the game is that each level has a sign which reveals more and more of the backstory, and it's really funny, and it kind of made me want to keep playing to learn more and more. One of the coolest things about this game is that it's an indie game, which means it wasn't made by a huge company in the industry or had a huge budget. It was made on like a $10,000 budget by two dudes who used to go to a coffee shop and use free Wi-Fi. That's super cool, and this game went on to win a ton of awards and is an awesome physics simulator. Speaking of physics, I think this game would be perfect for physics classrooms or any kind of science like that, engineering. They tried to be as realistic with the law of physics as they could with these structures. You know, if your structure isn't supported on both sides in the way that it should be, like in this case, you can see the structure is too one-sided to the right and it's gone. One of the great things about this game is that you can learn from your mistakes. If your tower doesn't make it on the first try, you have unlimited lives. There is no penalty to you other than the fact that you had to start over again. So it allows you to try new things and be creative and do what it takes to beat the level. This concept goes back to G's sandbox principle, which describes the importance of risk-taking and explorative thinking. By assigning high-stakes schoolwork and more short assignments or playful in-class questions, students will have the freedom to fail and try again, always learning from their mistakes just as they do in games. This idea of trial and error learning is a concept rooted in the explorative thinking that students get to practice in a constructed sandbox of learning, as opposed to among high-stakes tests and questions, where learning and performance suddenly count and carry a great deal of pressure. For students with low self-esteem, playing in a sandbox is particularly important since they're so cognizant of their weaknesses that often they cannot give their best efforts even in an ungraded exercise. Game learning is different than passive or content-fed learning. It's what Thomas and Seeley wrote about in their examination of games and virtual worlds, in which they discussed how when you learn through games, you learn to be, as opposed to simply learning about. In 2011, Shute and Kim actually did a study called Does World of Goo Facilitate Learning? They basically came to many of the same conclusions that G did years prior. They discussed the old expression, it doesn't matter if you win or lose, it's how you play the game, and how that took on a whole new meaning with the findings in their study. They said in particular, losing in a curious way may actually be a form of winning when it comes to video games and learning. So again, just to summarize, video games provide a safe place for kids to learn and to fail without the fear of consequence. That way, students won't be afraid to be creative and try new things. with the fear of failing.